Hi all, and welcome to the final part of the Hot Rod series. In this video what we'll be doing is I got some tips from a friend of mine who works at DICE in Sweden, and I had some trouble with the engine texture at the moment. I didn't feel like it was going somewhere, so I asked him for some feedback. He did a paint over, and in this video I'm actually applying what he said about the texture. What he said is you're not making the details pop out enough by painting in specific grime and dirt into the corners. So that's exactly what I'm going to do at the supercharger part at the top. And why am I picking the supercharger part? Well, that's because it's one of the most visible parts. It really sits like at eye height. It's a real eye catcher. So I'm just testing some brushes, testing some modes to apply it. I picked this brownish tint as a linear burn. And why am I picking linear burn? Well, the interesting thing is if you paint it lightly, it's brown. If you paint harder, it turns to black, which I think is an interesting property because it looks like this burnt in, caked on, oily dirt, which is exactly what I want for an engine like this. So here you see me painting over. I had to reduce the flow to like a really low level. I think that's mostly because I'm using a very dark color together with the linear burn mode. You have to reduce things pretty badly. So right now with my tablet, I'm just painting over this, and I'm painting in the places where the dirt would amass, where there will be a lot. If you have trouble with this, you should just have a look at a dirty engine piece. Maybe open the hood on your car. Look for pictures on the internet. I looked for some reference about this on CG Textures. There was some nice old oily grimy machinery on there which I could use as reference. And I'm just painting in the dirt here. Keep in mind this is the first layer. This is not how it's going to look finally. I'm just going to make some adjustments after this. But right now we just have to think really hard about where do I apply this stuff and how is it going to make my details from my normal map pop out even more. Also keep in mind that the color seems a little bit purplish here, but that's due to video compression. I get some weird colors in here. And painting this everywhere, all over the engine. I want this sort of stuff, so really I'm not going to be cheap with this dirt. I'm increasing the flow a little bit because in the darker areas it's not very visible. So I'm adjusting that on the fly for the place I'm applying it. Fortunately, I don't have a shortcut for changing brush flow. I have other shortcuts set on my tablet, so I have to do it manually all the time. So yeah, just painting over it, making sure not to paint in a manner that is too uniform, just squiggling a little bit. Makes it look more natural. I'm just going at all of these places. This sort of work can be a little bit stupid because you're making the same movement all the time. But then again, it's not stupid because you really have to think about the places where this stuff would amass, and this sort of the thought that goes into a texture really makes the difference in quality also. If you're not thinking about what should exactly be on your texture, how it's built up, how it actually became this way in real life, then you'll never be able to get realistic textures. So I'm especially using this dirt overlay paint thing to make the normal map only details pop. To be honest, the engine, even though it's 5,000 polygons by itself, isn't that detailed in terms of geometry. It's more the normal map that's making things work. So that's where I'll be using my diffuse texture to make the normal map pop out more. So slight adjustments to my brush. I'm even setting it to 1% here because it's just too strong otherwise. So especially in the light areas, I have to vary this. Go just painting over these areas. The top of the engine is also an important part. I want it to be visible there. And once again, this linear burn mode, even though you can't tell that well, is really helping to make it look like burnt in oil. Because as you can imagine, there's always a little bit of oil leaking outside of the engine, or it just gets applied on top to coat it against rust. But since oil is sticky, dirt gets stuck in there, and since the engine heats up, the oil is also heated, and it can get really hot, and then it changes the color of the metal slightly towards a brownish tint. That together with the dirt, so that's where these colors come from. And you might not. Some people might not think about painting with a different blend mode. I don't usually do this, but if I'm going for something very specific, then yeah, sure, why not experiment with it? There's only a few that I ever really use. I mean, like multiply can be interesting, overlay, linear burn like this one, and linear dodge add is also interesting. The other ones, not that much. But if there's a specific case where it works, sure, experiment. Okay, so some more details at the bottom here. I'm changing the size on the fly also. Some places need broader strokes, some places need smaller strokes. And I'm putting a lot more effort into the areas that I know will be quite visible, like the side, the supercharger, that sort of stuff. Shouldn't put too much effort in the areas that you won't really see. See, in some places it gets too dark again, so I have to vary the intensity again. It's a bit of a tricky process. It's hard to get the right value for everywhere. A bit on this transmission here, which is definitely going to be an oily, dirty part. Pan at the bottom of the transmission, some detail parts. And I've said this before, but without a tablet you shouldn't really attempt this. This is really, really hard and annoying, and it's probably not even good for your arm to do this with a mouse. So for texturing, really consider investing in a Wacom tablet. See, especially this part, if you compare it to where it was before I started with it, it's making a big difference, this sort of dirt painting I'm doing on it. So to reiterate what I said at the beginning of this video, if you're stuck with a texture, it happens to me too. Then just try to get some feedback from, be it an online forum or somebody you know who is better at texturing than you, or even just a fresh look from somebody else. I mean, I've been staring at this thing for so long that I was just losing track of what should be the focus. And here I'm creating an even more burnished sort of brush look, going for a more saturated, lighter color. And in the really high profile areas where the color is really visible, I'm just going over things again to really, really push that burnt oil look all the way. Look at that, that's really working out. I'm really liking this. This was definitely a twist for the better. So I'm doing it in all the really visible places. There we go. I'm not doing it too much on the supercharger because I don't want it to be like the dirtiest part of the car, since it sits at the top and it won't really catch all that much dirt compared to the underside of the engine. So I'm saving that as a TGA, and I'm just gonna have a look at it in my 3D application then. And yeah, this is definitely working out. This is going the right way. Engine as a showpiece is definitely improving like this. Really getting the old solid worn look of an engine with this. Might need to push it a little bit further in some places. Go over here, needs to have some more of that brown. And yeah, the exhaust can definitely use some of that. Also, gotta say this again, this is not dirt or rust that I'm actually painting. It's oil that has dirt in it, so you don't want to paint this on parts that wouldn't actually come into contact with oil. Like, I don't know, the suspension or the frame or something. You won't use that brush on this. Once again, thinking about how and why this layer of dirt and detail in the texture is exactly applied there. See, I wasn't even too sure about the look on the tip of the exhausts, so I'm redoing a little bit to make it more subtle. And don't worry that you're not seeing too much again. Video compression accounts for a little bit of loss of quality. These broader strokes aren't really working out, so I'm just going to focus back on the important areas and go over those with some broad strokes. And I'm going to paint a little bit of that at the top. Right now I'm just painting it more as general dirt. Maybe I should do this on another layer, but it's not always in the same sense as the stuff on the engine. But since I really like how it's working and popping out the details, I'm just gonna use this technique a lot. There we go. A slight adjustment to that layer, which I thought was necessary. And we're back to painting our oil and dirt on this layer. And it might not always be very clear as to why I'm painting on this exact location. That's because I've worked on this texture a lot, and I really know where the detail areas in the texture are. But if you have trouble with this, just overlay your ambient occlusion, overlay your cavity map, or your normal map even, if it helps you find the details in the texture. And just some more over there. Greasing the sides a little bit. It looks like this part needs quite a lot of details, so I'm going to go back at it here. See, just some slight brush strokes with the right settings can really take this part from looking solid colored, way too new, unrealistic, to quite believable already. There we go. In some other places. And just going over some other areas again. I want to make sure that I don't have to come back to this layer also. It's kind of confusing if you work on a layer and it's half finished because you decide to work on something else. Another reason for that is I have these very specific brush settings. I could create a tool preset, sure, but I don't want to clutter my tool presets with stuff I only use once. So I just want to use these settings until I'm completely done with them. So I'm saving this. and I'm immediately dropping my oil layer into my specular folders. And of course I'm gonna have to boost the contrast and colors quite a bit here, so I desaturate things, copy it, and there we go. Save my diffuse again, and with that done, taking a look at things again, and yeah, this really is working. Alright, looks like it's working at the back too. So hope this video was a little bit informative. It shows you how I took the texture a little bit further after I thought it was getting bogged down a bit with yeah, I wasn't able to find the right thing to do to make this texture more interesting. So I took a step back, asked for some advice, applied this, and that turned out to be definitely the right move to do. So just looking around my model right now, looks like most of the stuff from this chassis is done. I think in the next video I'll move on to the next texture. So hope to see you in the next video.